So recently, there seems to be a bit of a situation developing with a popular accessory manufacturer and their latest product for the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, this was first brought to my attention on Saturday night. We were doing the Spawn cast. It was Spawn Wave, myself, Evan, and Celia, because nobody else likes to join John to talk to him, because I'm his only true friend at the end of the day. And even I don't like him. But somebody had donated into the show asking us what we thought about the Dbrand Kill Switch 2 situation for the Nintendo Switch 2, which of course is Dbrand's newest case for the Switch 2. And honestly, I had no idea what he was talking about, and neither did John. The individual then told us to check out the Dbrand Reddit to see all of the things that were being discussed over there. And then once I went over there, I saw a whole bunch of different topics. And then yesterday, somebody had commented on my latest video asking if I was going to be talking about the Dbrand situation. So this seems to be something that is top of mind for a lot of people, and I do have the Dbrand Kill Switch 2 case for my Nintendo Switch 2, so I figure, yeah, let's talk about it. Maybe I'll burn a bridge, and that's nothing really new for me. So here is kind of where everything started for me in my research of this. This was a post done 4 days ago over on the Dbrand Reddit forum, and this is from an individual that, like, my man I think he put on the bathrobe because he knew he was going to be making this video, and he just wanted to flex on people. But Kill Switch case for Switch 2 Joy-Con issues. Hi everyone, I saw a post the other day about issues with the Joy-Con easily detaching from the device, and I wanted to post the issues I am also having. To start, I did follow the instructional video by Dbrand on installing the Kill Switch case correctly. I removed the Joy-Cons to put on the skin and then attached the Joy-Con case / cover. The issue I'm having is that I cannot remove one hand from my Switch 2 without having the Joy-Con dislodge. I went to scratch my nose after a Mario Kart race, and the device fell onto my lap, and that never happened with the caseless Switch 2. And then this individual does indeed have a video showing off their problem. And essentially, you can see here, this person is holding the Switch 2 with one hand, and then when, it goes into one hand, the Joy-Con just kind of dislodges off of the Switch 2 itself. And I think it's a very interesting thing to sort of look at. And there are many other people that are reporting that this is a problem for them. You can see here, we have another person, the same sort of thing. I'm holding the case here, and now it detaches. And obviously this seems to be a little bit more problematic than the other one was, at least for the initial bit, and now we're getting into the thing. So what is actually going on here, and is this a big design flaw of the system? Now, Dbrand has actually come out and issued a statement on it, but like I said, I own this case. I did a spot for this case when the Nintendo Switch 2 first came out, and I haven't had the Joy-Cons dislodge or anything like that. So I want to test it out, though. I want to see if I can replicate this, and if so, what is actually causing this to be an issue? So that's what we're going to do now. All right, so here is my Nintendo Switch 2 in the nude, and we're going to be putting on the Dbrand accessories, the Kill Switch 2. Now, I have previously used this before. Consists of 3 different pieces, the 2 Joy-Con grips, and the system case itself. Now, evidently, they have like an install video about how you're supposed to install it. According to the Reddit, I'm not watching that. I've already installed this before. It is a case. I'm not an idiot. I don't feel like I need that. I do want to mention one thing before we get into this, though, because this could be a situation where I end up burning a bridge. Like, if this thing does fall apart in my hands, like as seen in Mr. Bathrobe's video, like, obviously I can't co-sign that, so I'm going to have to be honest with the situation and stuff. But I do want to mention, when you pick up the Switch 2 and like, look at that flex. Now, I do have my fingers underneath the system right here because I don't want to just grip it this way, because I don't like that flex, because of course, you have this piece here in the whole magnet system. But if you just grip it as it is, like, oh my God, that's giving me anxiety. Like, right off the bat, that's giving me some serious anxiety. So we are going to put in the system into the case here. It's simple thing. It has a lip on it to keep everything protected on your system. So let's go ahead and throw that in there. There we go. Easy peasy. That lip is so if you are to drop it, it'll hit the lip and not the LCD screen that you have. And then you have these little Joy-Con grips. So, and this is actually the thing I like the most about this case are these Joy-Con grips, because I hate the fact that there's no texture on the back of a standard Joy-Con. Like it's not very comfortable in your hand. So like the grips are nice because it contours to your hand and, you know, it makes everything feel good. We'll go ahead and throw on the other one. And like I said, you know, they have like a tutorial video, I guess, for a thing. We'll take a look at that in just a few minutes here. And then you insert, and then you insert. Now, this is the part where we're going to grip just the Joy-Con itself. Now, full disclosure, when I'm holding a Switch or a Switch 2, my fingers are behind the system to give it additional comfort. Like, this is how I would hold a system one-handed. And when I'm doing this, you know, I'm still getting that flex, but it's not coming off because I'm supporting it underneath. I would never, personally, just grip it like this. But even if I do grip it like this, like it seems like it's staying in there and I'm not doing anything fancy with this or anything. Like I simply just assembled this and I'm okay. So we got the left one to fall off there. Very nice. I gave it some wiggle and it fell off. The right one, not so much. But even, you know, when I'm doing it like this, I'm still trying to support it because it doesn't feel like you would want to grip it. And like, I'm not telling you how to hold your Switch 2 whatsoever. It does seem like if you just hold it by the Joy-Con itself, you give it a little shakeroonie, like I feel, yeah, that was coming off. But when I'm holding it with one hand, my fingers are underneath the system to support it. Now, something fell. That being said, that is just me. That is just how I hold the system. If you are holding the system by the single Joy-Con itself, then yes, as you saw in this tutorial of assembling and messing around with it, the Joy-Con grip and the Joy-Con itself did fall off because you're putting that weight onto it. That's creating that additional strain. But that also kind of goes back to putting on the Joy-Con itself, even without the case. Maybe it doesn't fall off, but could it eventually break off because of that little piece that is in there? You know, who's to say with that? But that was our little demonstration on this. We saw some interesting results. So now let's check out what Dbrand had to say about the case, because honestly, I didn't love what they had to say. So after a couple of days of radio silence, when this wave of people with their concerns about the product hit their Reddit forum, Dbrand finally spoke on the subject matter. They had to get all their ducks in a row and put out a very lengthy response. And when I say very lengthy, I mean very, very lengthy. Like, this thing is very, very detailed about all sorts of aspects, such as the Joy-Cons themselves and how they connect and all of that sort of stuff when connecting to the system. They used, of course, the Welcome Tour game that they charge you $10 for, that pretty much tells you what a system is, and, you know, the principles of leverage make it easier to detach, and kind of that separation that we did see before I put on the Joy-Con grip onto my Nintendo Switch 2, where when I was holding it and it was flexing, and like that made me very uncomfortable about the design of the product itself. They show you how to put everything on and how you should do it and all that sort of stuff, like very, very lengthy. And then they show you, like, this is where they kind of lose me a little bit. They show you like this. First and perhaps foremost, we should clarify, in order for the detachment to occur in the way that users have expressed concern over, all three of the following conditions must be met. And then they talk about it, and then they say, on these points, we need to be firm. Nobody routinely holds their Switch 2 like this. And on one hand, I get it. I don't hold my Switch 2 like that. Like I showed you guys, I put my fingers on the back of it to, give it additional weight and support, not putting all the pressure on the Joy-Con itself. But I also don't feel like you should be telling people how they are or aren't holding something. People have different hand sizes. People have different levels of comfort when they're holding things. So I don't know. That's kind of a weird thing to say and almost like a bit of a defensive thing when in actuality you should be, explaining things and kind of being sympathetic towards things. But they basically show you this, this is how you hold it, and that's how I hold it. And then you can see here that there's the flex going on, and this is without the Joy-Con grip on the system. So, it's basically just showing you how there is flex with it. Like, that's very uncomfortable, but that's, once again, a product of the system's design itself, not necessarily the grip itself. And then they show you some different instances of, holding it with one hand behind the Joy-Con grip and it not coming off and stuff like that. Why is this person wearing a mask? That's kind of weird to me. And then they show you some situations where it can indeed detach, or sometimes it detaches and sometimes it doesn't detach and whatnot, and then different sorts of clips here. Like this, like I said, this is very, very in-depth sort of stuff. And 87% of the weight on the hinge, blah, 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 viral videos and you. And then they talk about people making videos trying to replicate it, which once again, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because people are obviously going to be interested to see, what they can and can't do with the Dbrand Kill Switch 2 as far as using the Joy-Con grips are concerned, and maybe what sort of things that they can avoid and should avoid in order to not have a situation happen like this. So then you have all these different videos that they're linking, and then what's going on here, key component, what's the solution? They've changed a little something. We're not making better stock in July. We're just, adjusting our tolerance and inspection guidelines to filter out a small fraction of stock before it makes it to the customers. It's not in any way reflective of how people actually hold their Switch 2. And I don't know, that it kind of comes off a little bit as defensive when you start to read everything involved in it. And I get it. I could be a very defensive person too, but this is a situation where, you're dealing with people's money. You are selling a product to people, and if people are having a problem with it, whether it's a small fraction of people that ends up becoming a viral video or whatever the case may be, you need to be sympathetic towards the individual. If you know anything about Dbrand, like, one of their trademarks of like their company is their kind of quirkiness and their quirky humor. When I worked with them, they actually sent me a book that was like the history of Dbrand, and it had like pictures of like Tom Brady in there, saying that like Tom Brady was involved. And when I say a book, I mean this thing was like this thick. Like it's a massive novel. And I get that that's kind of their brand as a company and kind of one of their brand identities, but you also have to be sympathetic towards the situation, because people, they're giving you money, and maybe not be so tongue-in-cheek with this sort of thing. Now, I know what you're saying to yourself. Well, RGT, what is your conclusion on this situation? Should I buy this? Should I avoid this product? Is this actually a problem? Are you still getting paid from them? I'm a very transparent person, and like I said, if I need to burn a bridge, I'll burn a bridge. It is what it is. I don't get any commissions off of people using my Dbrand link or anything like that. I don't like doing business deals like that. I prefer, if I'm doing an ad spot for you, that there's just a set amount, so I don't have to feel like people need to buy something. For me, I'm still going to use this. Now, granted, I'm playing my Switch 2 docked way more than I did my Switch 1. I played my Switch 1 primarily in handheld mode, but I'm playing this primarily docked because it actually looks good on the TV. But I am someone who holds it from the bottom. I am someone who gives it that additional weight to it. That is what is comfortable to me. So for me, I think it's a good product because I don't like the way the Joy-Cons feel naturally when it's in my hand. But if you're someone who does feel like you are going to feel inclined to just hold it by the grip itself, then maybe, you know, you should check out something else. And like, you know, that's just me being honest about it. You know, it kind of boils down to what your needs are with a product and how you feel about how this situation was handled. Some people are going to be able to look past this and be like, oh, that's just who they are as a company. Some people might not like their response. Some people may be turned off by the product. And I don't think that there's any sort of right or wrong answer, much like there isn't a right or wrong way to hold your Switch 2 with one hand. But there obviously are implications by doing that, even without the Joy-Con cover itself, because obviously, you know, you're putting a lot of weight on that. You're putting all the pressure on the Joy-Con itself. But like I said, your mileage is going to vary. And if that's something that you feel like you're going to want to hold your Switch 2 that way, or you currently hold your Switch 2 that way, then maybe you don't want to pick that up. And I would completely understand that. I'm not going to be a dick to you because you have questions and concerns about something like that. You know, I'm just showing you guys how it is for me. And I understand that my mileage is going to be very different than your mileage. But obviously, this is a problem. And hopefully it gets rectified sooner rather than later, or else, I mean, Dbrand's not going to be... They're not going to be looking too good coming out of this. I don't think you're going to come out of this smelling like roses by telling people they're essentially holding something wrong when, you know, it's just human nature to hold things the way you want to hold things. If you get mad at that, Dbrand, I'm sorry, but, you know, it is what it is, pal. Let me know in the comment section down below, though. Have you picked up the Kill Switch 2? If so, have you run into any problems with it? How do you hold your Switch 2 when in handheld mode? Do you put your fingers behind it like I do, or do you tend to just grip the Joy-Cons themselves? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to give me all your thoughts in the comments section down below. Hit that subscribe button if you are new to the channel. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.